All right, what's up, everybody? It is the College Football Show. We're recording Friday night. Jack, what's going on, man? How we doing?
Doing great. How about you? Excited for this slate of football we got ahead of us Saturday and Sunday.
I was gonna say it's first full week. Let's do a quick little recap. See what you got right. See what you got wrong. See what we can learn because college football, it's extremely volatile. So I'll leave it. The headline for me basically is, you're going 50-50, right? Starting off winning here, losing there. What jumped out to you as far as like a game? The last game you won was USC, but it wasn't anywhere near going over. It was basically that kind of week for you. What kind of jumped out, as you analyze your performance?
Yeah, so definitely some good reads. Great read on the USC money line. I knew that Miller Moss was a little bit underrated, and that team's going to be really, really good this year. Couple bad reads. A&M is the same old A&M that we know. They are a preseason darling and then let down as soon as they play anybody half decent. So I was definitely wrong on that, and that kind of hinders my Notre Dame future as well. I have them at under 10 wins, and their schedule is fairly easy with some of the other losses that were suffered during this past weekend. So they're a little bit of hindrance there. Same with Virginia Tech. High on Virginia Tech, still high on Virginia Tech. But that loss to Vanderbilt really, I think, says a lot more about Vanderbilt than it does about Virginia Tech. That Diego Pavia guy went to New Mexico State last year. They blew out Auburn, if you don't remember. But yeah, New Mexico State blew out Auburn pretty comfortably last year. He led Vandy to a very solid win against a good Virginia Tech team. So not really a bad read there, I would say. Although I did have Virginia Tech definitely winning that game.
Can we circle back to the USC LSU game, mainly because you got that right, but also what did it? You said you like USC. What are we doing with LSU? What are we doing? I lost so much money with them last year on that first game against Florida State, and now I'm so pissed that I didn't bet against them this year. It's like everything I was dead right from last year, which was Florida State was going to suck. But they sucked this year instead of last year. So I got that wrong. And then I'm like, LSU is going to be good last year. They were bad. I'm like, this year they'll be good. And they look bad again. And what's just the takeaway? Because the talent's there. Is it Brian Kelly?
Yeah, so that's a great point you bring up. I mean, yeah, they do have a lot of talent there. And this is kind of an interesting take. But I really think that Ole Miss, is LSU have kind of switched spots. Like Lane Kiffin is still an interesting coach, but Lane Kiffin is a little more disciplined than Brian Kelly right now. And that reminds you of those LSU teams, like in previous years, Joe Burrow with Ed Orgeron. They were pretty disciplined. And Ole Miss is becoming more disciplined, and LSU is kind of turning into this talent team where talent just goes to die, and you go 8-5, and you live with it.
They're supposed to run the football. Like, why can't they run the football? LSU cannot run the football. Unbelievable. They looked really, really. It was just poor performance for LSU. All right, let's fast forward to this week. How do we make some money? Why don't we start there? Like, how do we? I know Texas, Michigan, Colorado, Nebraska get the headlines. Let's dive into that next. But what jumped out at you where you're like, man, I really see some value here as you're going through these games?
Yeah, got a couple games. I actually will have bets on both of those two games that you named. One that really jumped out at me is Missouri over Buffalo. Buffalo is a decent, albeit small, mid-major team. And Missouri is only about a 34. I took it at 34 or 34 and a half earlier this week. I'm not sure what the line is now. But that game should be like a 40-point spread. Missouri has a phenomenal offense. I'm really high on them. And they returned a lot of guys. And I think they just blow the doors off of Buffalo. So that's one of my picks. I'll have that put out later. In terms
Missouri,
of,
I'm sorry, did Missouri cover last week?
no, but I think it was like a half a point. If I remember right, it was like 51-3 or something like that.
I knew they played a really crappy team, so
yeah, it was right there at the line. They dominated, but let off the gas at the end. I mean, a 30-point spread, you don't really leave off the gas, and so, or it's too late. We'll say it that way. So cool. I really like them to cover those points there.
What was the next game you were going to mention?
Yeah, so CU Nebraska. CU Nebraska is an interesting game because CU blew the brakes off them last year, and CU's offensive production pretty much all comes back. Nebraska has a 5-star guy named Dylan Raiola, and he's their quarterback this year. True freshman, straight out of high school. He had a very good game last year against a very small program, but I don't know if I trust him in his first big home game. to cover that 7.5-point spread. I like CU and I like their personnel groupings. Yeah, they're not disciplined, and yeah, they have a ton of penalties all the time. But I really think that they're going to make this a game. The talent gap is there. Colorado has a ton more talent than Nebraska does, and Raiola is unproven. He has never played in a big game, literally never. He hasn't even sat on the sideline with pads on and watched a big game besides in high school.
Last week we recorded during the Colorado game, so I haven't gotten a chance to talk to you about what was your takeaway after the game? Because North Dakota State, for people that don't pay attention to Division II or whatever it's called, FCS football, like North Dakota State's one of the top teams. They're favored, I think, to win this year.
Yeah. If you remember kind of that Clemson, Alabama period where they went back and forth, that's North Dakota State and South Dakota State. Like, they are the top dogs. They'd be ranked, I mean, if you go by FPI or SP+, whatever you want to look at, they're consistently in the top 30, top 35 teams in the country, regardless of division. They're good. And so there's nothing to scoff at there, but CU had like 100 yards of penalties, and they were stupid penalties too.
And you see that, so if do you think Colorado wins the game, or you just think it stays close to the end?
I like it within a touchdown. I personally do think Colorado will be able to pull it out just because, I mean, they have experience, and I hate that I'm kind of contradicting myself here, but I think that experience is going to play a role in a game that they're underdogs. Like, when you're an underdog, it's easier to stay disciplined when you're like, we need to, like, they don't think we're going to win. So we need to do everything right.
I agree with you. There's like pressure on them last week to win by 3 touchdowns.
Exactly.
Make a big play. I like that logic. I want to go. Wait, let me ask you this before we go to the next game. Why did Raiola choose Nebraska? If he's was he the top freshman quarterback in the whole?
It's funny you asked that. He was committed to Georgia first. He's from Georgia, was committed to Georgia, and long story short, they threw him a large duffel bag of cash and told him to come to Nebraska. So that's part of it. Also, his dad was a star center, has his number retired and everything in Lincoln. So partially family, but also they threw him a large sum of money to come.
So Raiola, right? He played in the NFL. That does sound familiar.
Yeah, Dominic Raiola, if I'm correct. So pretty interesting there. But yeah, I'm pretty confident in him.
Would Raiola be the quarterback next year for Georgia?
That's a great question. We had another guy come in, Puglisi. He, I think I talked to you about this earlier when he committed, actually, probably last year. But he went to like a military boarding school up in Avon Old Farm, I think is what it's called, up north. And so he has been through the ringer in high school. Raiola kind of had a cakewalk, like this, like star quarterback in public high school, you know. Puglisi went through the ringer. And so those two guys were coming in the same recruiting class. And so he might have gotten scared away by Puglisi. Also, our backup currently is named Gunnar Stockton. He's a Georgia local. He sat behind Beck last year, sat behind Stett for a year, if I'm correct. So he would have to battle. To answer your question, he would have had to battle to win that job next year.
And Matt Rule, is he running an offense up there in Nebraska that's going to make things work? Is that an attractive? I mean, Nebraska's got to be favored by 7.5 for a reason, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of that's home field advantage and how CU looked last week. If I'm being honest, I think it's a bit of an overreaction. I'm taking 7.5. Down to 7, it's kind of questionable. I really like it at 7.5. That's where I'll have my pick.
So let's go to Texas, Michigan. If you've been gambling forever, you would be like, wait a second, there's no way that Michigan would be a home underdog when they're good by 7.5 points. So there's got to be a reason. Did you watch I know you were wrong about the Texas. Let's start with Texas because you got that game wrong last week with Colorado State. If you tell me why you got that wrong and what do you think of Texas first?
Yeah, Colorado State did not show up. They showed up like they went out in Austin the night before. That's how they showed up. That team returns a lot of guys, and they're going to compete in the Mountain West, but they were not ready to play. And so I think it's more of a Colorado State thing, and that's more of how my bet was. My bet was not against Texas. It was more of a support of Colorado State. So
what did you think of Texas after that game? What did you come away? Were you surprised by anybody jump out at you? And then I'll let you roll as you tell me how they match up against Michigan.
Yeah, so I'm pretty confident in them, still pretty confident in them. They're a playoff team, no ifs, ands, or buts. I do like how they spread the ball around. They move the ball on offense really well. And that was kind of my worry, losing Xavier Worthy and AD Mitchell. I mean, those were their two stud receivers as well as the running back. So that's more what I was worried about. I am still high on them. I think they beat Michigan, and I think they cover. And that's, again, not really a bet for Texas or has to do with Texas, more has to do with Michigan. And Michigan's just still a giant question mark. They had troubles running away from a bad team last week. I think they played Fresno State and won by like 30-10. I think it was like a 1 or 2 score game for most of the game. And they don't know who's going to play quarterback because Orji only got a couple snaps, and then the other guy, Davis Warren, I think is his name. He didn't impress against Fresno State. You got Texas coming to town, like some would say the favorite to win the national championship. You got to be on your A game, regardless of if you're at home.
Michigan, I have a hard time. So first of all, full disclosure, I had one bet last week. It was Wyoming. So now I'm done betting college football. Like, I don't know if you know, but they lost by 50 to Arizona State.
I did see that, yeah.
Just like, all right, so I'm so done with that. Thank God we're recording this, like I said, Friday night. So I was right about Isaiah Likely yesterday. I felt like that made up for – I was like a monkey off my back for what's been a wild couple of months with Wyoming being at the center of my disappointment from last week. So I'm not betting college football. I'm fascinated to like study the players more this year, but from a gambling perspective, I'm staying away from it. So with that being said, I don't know if you fully convinced me. I need a little bit more. So I want to push back. How Michigan, their defense, yes, they didn't blow Fresno State out, but isn't the defense just as good at 7.5 points, or is the defense not just as good?
Defense is probably close to as good, but they won games last year because they were able to make it happen on the offensive side of the ball. I'm not impressed with what I've seen from Donovan Edwards, and they lost their coach. So that's the other thing to think about is Harbaugh's gone. Harbaugh's gone. J.J. McCarthy's gone. Blake Corum's gone. You lost your good, decent receivers. Roman Wilson's gone. Like, from those past 2 years, they're like, obviously they won the championship last year. Year before, they had a great, very solid showing. I think they lost to TCU. That was the year they lost to TCU. But they still had a ton of weapons, and they haven't really been able to reload. Their really only real offensive weapon that showed up last week was Colston Loveland, the tight end.
So Michigan's only winning this game like 13-10, basically.
That's my take, yes.
Yeah. I love Loveland, by the way. Is he just a sophomore, right? Or is
Who?
he
Loveland?
Yeah, or is he older?
I think he's a sophomore. He's young.
Yeah, really like him. All right, so you like Texas, you like Colorado. What else? Anything else jump out? I know Tennessee plays NC State. That should be entertaining. NC State really struggled. They ended up they won, right, last week? Barely?
Yeah, they laid it on at the end. I think they won by 17, but it was one of those games that was too close at the end. So
right.
That's a game to watch for me. It is not a true home game. It is in Charlotte, North Carolina. So it's like the Duke's Mayo kickoff, I think. So Tennessee fans travel well, but it is a lot closer to NC State there.
Tennessee was great last week, right?
Yeah, Tennessee laid the boom. They played somebody really bad, but I think they won 63-0, something along those lines. They laid the hammer. But, again, small sample size and against, like, high school varsity players. So, got to take that into consideration.
Can we circle back to something? I talked about it briefly. I know I'm not the only one, but maybe you just have a take on this because I don't like calling people stupid, like, especially people that get to positions of, like, being a general manager in charge of an NFL draft, like calling those people stupid seems kind of silly, right? Because everybody would love to have that job. It takes a ton of work to get there. There's a couple situations where nepotism is involved and so forth. But I don't think that's the case in Buffalo. Okay. So just a quick, because it's just on my brain, then we'll get back to college football. So Buffalo, it's not a mistake. It is what it is. They make the trade however many years ago to give the draft pick to the Chiefs for Patrick Mahomes, right? And then this year rolls around and everybody knows. I'm trying not to get upset that the Ravens lost yesterday, but everybody knows, like it's not a secret. You don't even have to be a big like sports fan to be like, oh, the Chiefs need like a receiver, right? Like I almost feel like I know I'm in a bubble of being a sports fan, but like that's not breaking any news after last year, right? Like oh my God, the Chiefs won the Super Bowl without great receivers. And Buffalo trades the pick again, and I'm watching yesterday. It's the fastest guy on the field. It makes absolutely no sense. So what's Buffalo's logic when they make that draft pick? Just like we're just not worried what the other team does, like this alpha mentality, like we don't care. Keon Coleman's so good, it doesn't even matter. We're gonna get our guy. But the Chiefs did not just. I know I'm getting long-winded here, but for the recap is the Chiefs did not have a first-round pick. They needed to move up in order to get Xavier Worthy. And I don't know, we're talking about the Texas-Michigan game, and I like zoned out and remembered how he just ran past the defense twice yesterday.
Yeah, so I'm gonna lead into that with a question for you. Do you know who held the record before Worthy?
As the like combine guy?
Yeah.
Is it John Ross?
Exactly. And you know what John Ross is doing right now?
Nothing. But he also didn't have Patrick Mahomes.
Exactly. I mean, that's fair, but you can't bank on speed. I mean, Tony's got wheels. Kadarius Toney was. I mean, yeah, he's not disciplined. The caveat with Worthy was his size, and that's what the problem with John Ross was. Is he couldn't stay on the field, and he was so small. And John Ross ran a 4.22. Dude could fly. But there's more to it than just speed. Now, if they get him in the right situations, and if he doesn't get hurt, he's going to be a weapon. But from a reliability and staying on the field standpoint, Keon Coleman is going to be on the field more than Xavier Worthy is highly likely, just based on their build and the way they play the position.
I respect that point of view. To me, it's all about coaching in the NFL. Like these guys, it's hard to separate the talent. So I do think that even though everything you said is true, I would still look at it and be like, I can't let Andy Reid have the fast guy because it's too much misdirection. It's exactly what they needed. But I guess the answer to the question, as you pretty much gave good reasons, is we just have to worry about our team. Like we got to focus on our team and what's best for our team and whatever. But man, that guy is perfect for the Chiefs. Do you think that was just a flash in the pan? Or are you not sold on it after yesterday?
No, I'm not sold. Not saying it was a bad performance. It's only one game. Other thing to consider is Broncos. I'm a Broncos fan as living in Denver. Took Troy Franklin. Troy Franklin's an Oregon product, got wheels too. Dude could fly and has the agility, like not quite to Worthy, but pretty close. And he was a 3rd-round pick. So to your point, yeah, they did get somebody fast, but they could have gotten a guy in the 3rd round too, or the end of the 2nd if they wanted Troy Franklin. And maybe he's making those same plays.
So you're zagging on Xavier Worthy. Bold take this afternoon. I respect it. All right, let's get back to college football. Is there anything else we're missing? Anything else you're looking out for? Or anything else from last week that stood out that you still want to talk about? Or I'll leave it open-ended for you. Like, how can we help people, want to help people make some money? Is there something just to stay away from? Is there like, hey, that might be something that you could see people gravitating towards and you're screaming, stay away, stay away?
Yeah, so 2 biggest things I look at, especially like recently, are like home underdogs. If you're a home underdog, it's very important to like really consider that spread because that's important to look at. So like as a home underdog, they cover at a pretty solid clip. I want to say it's like 63% home underdogs cover. And then their outright wins are pretty high too. So something to think about. Michigan is a home underdog, but I just am not sold at all. There's so much turnover, and so that's a conversation that we kind of already had and that we could get into for hours. But home underdog is very important. Also looking at the line, like that Texas A&M line, I kind of was caught hook, line, and sinker on that A&M line because I was like, that's a little fishy. Texas A&M being favored -3 against the number 7 team in the country, that's a little bit weird. And so I kind of got caught looking at that instead of really looking at their teams and like thinking, okay, A&M has been a fraud for however long we've seen them play, like 5, 6, 7 years. They've never lived up to their potential. What makes you think they're going to this year? Yeah, they got a new coach, but those are certain things that I pay attention to, and sometimes it bites you in the butt, just like A&M did.
What about some of these big spreads? Some of these, the Georgias, the Alabamas this week. Are you laying those points, or are you just kind of staying away from the big spreads?
Yeah, I was looking at the Georgia spread. I don't even know if it's getting posted. It probably would be 55 to 60. So no, I will not be laying those points there. Comes down to those big spreads. I really pay attention to the coach. OU is going to lay the hammer. That's why I took them last week. They have something to prove. CSU Texas had something to prove. CSU came out flat. So there you go. Like some of those big spreads, it comes down to the coaching and how they want to play that last third of the game. Because if they come out slow, they can still come back and cover. I mean, you saw that with Ohio State. They started out really slow and almost covered at the end, even though it was like a 17-3 game for a while. So that's something to think about, is how the coach is going to handle it, and not necessarily thinking about, oh, what if they're half asleep to start the game.
Sweet. You'll have out your picks. This we recorded. We'll have this out tomorrow morning. You'll have all your picks. I know it's first week of the NFL. This will be mostly a college football show, but I wanted to, if there was any bold takes, any season-long picks. I know you put out already you got your future bets. Did you put out your NFL future bets?
No, not yet. I'll have a couple. Probably send them out tomorrow afternoon.
Perfect. I was gonna say I couldn't remember if we posted them yet. All right. So you'll have. Are you still working through? You got anything you want to put on the record on the NFL? You got your Broncos winning the Super Bowl or something ridiculous?
No, I'm very tempted to take them tomorrow at +6.5, but I'm gonna have to do a little bit more digging. As
I will scream it, and I'll help talk you out of that, because that Seahawks defense is going to be there, especially if you go down points. Oh my God, don't let him play with the lead. What do you think, by the way, of the Ravens defense yesterday against the Chiefs? And then we'll get out of here. Did it look a lot different as not being like a Ravens fan from the outside looking in?
I wouldn't say it looked different. I say it looked good. Williams, that opposite side safety, he had a hell of a game. That dude played his ass off. So I think they're still a top 3 defense in the NFL. Hard to stop Mahomes, obviously.
Yeah, I was pretty impressed with the defenses. Like, what a great game, by the way. Like for the people that don't watch, who somehow convince themselves like the games are scripted. Those are my favorite people in the world.
That one was not. That one came down to the end.
But my point is, like, if they were, that would be. It's always funny to me when people who like don't really understand football and think somehow it's fixed. It's like, dude, these guys are running 1,000,000 miles an hour and colliding. Everybody's trying to get paid and do the best they can. Gosh darn it, we're recording. How the Packers don't score? It was 1st and goal on the 3, and they got to settle for a field goal.
Dang.
Everybody has that was like one of those bets. I didn't have the balls to do it, but I hate saying everybody, by the way, because you make these straw man arguments. I caught myself the other day by saying everybody says this, and then you can be the smart person and say something different. But I do think we polled most people that bet today, especially people that pay attention to football. It was hard to bet the under in this Packers-Eagles game, right? And as soon as you that would be my number one. There you go. I'll get out of here on this. This is my number one gambling advice. It doesn't matter what the sport is or what the bet is. As soon as your stomach is about to hurt before you're about to bet it, just bet it. Those are the games that'll just win. You're like, I'm really going to bet the under in the Packers-Eagles. No. Yes, just do it. And of course, what's it? 6-0 as we're recording, and by the time we finish, it actually will go over and I'll look like a jackass. But anyway, all right. Well, I'll let you get out of here. We'll have all the bets. I'm staying away from college football, so I'll help as much as I can in NFL. Excited for the MLB playoffs. Any MLB takes before we go?
Not yet. No, haven't paid much attention to baseball for the past months or so. I'll probably do some research on how teams finish the season, who's healthy, and what we're looking at there.
Sweet. I'll definitely be active for the playoffs. All right. I hope everybody has a great day. And Jack, see ya. Take care, and good luck with all your bets.
Awesome. Sounds good. Talk soon.